Precomp and SREP can also do a very good job when you have multiple versions of a program. For instance, Kerbal Space Program. Due to all the different mods for the game, it's a good idea to keep multiple versions of the game around. Here I have 4 different versions. If we compress these normally, (25.9%), that sounds pretty good, but we can do better. So, I go into the game folders, and then I add each separate version into its own tar file. I then run each of the versions through Precomp. With Kerbal Space Program, it doesn't help that much, but even a teensy-weensy bit of extra compression can help. And I do this separately to each and every different version I have. And then I add all the PCF files to a tar file. And now we run srep on the combined tar file. After srep, it gets down to 21%. It ends up smaller than the file we 7-zipped initially, before any more compression. So now we can compress this. It's down to 1.05 gigabytes, which is an 8.6% compression ratio. You can pretty much store every version of this game in less space than one version would normally take up. And it's possible to squeeze out a little bit more compression. Delta is available at Bulat's FreeArc website as seen in the last video. Delta works by recording the differences between bytes. For instance, if one byte is 127 and the next is 128, it would record the 128 as a 1. This makes certain types of data, especially audio, easier to compress. 7-zip has a delta filter option, but it works on all the files in a compression stream, and so if there's multiple types of data mixed together, it won't do a very good job on it. Delta seems to be able to figure out what should be delta encoded and what shouldn't on its own. To use delta, you type delta, and then point it to the file you want to process. And then you give it the file name you want it to output to. It runs pretty fast. The file that it outputs is larger, here about 10 megabytes larger. The larger the Delta file is, the more it should compress later on. But sometimes it doesn't end up smaller after compression. Sometimes the final compressed file turns out larger. To undelta a file, you type delta-d, point it to the delta file, and then give it an output file name. Now we compress the delta file. The deltaed version ends up being 3 megabytes smaller in the end. It's not a large difference, and so I consider it to be an optional step, but it can help you to achieve the maximum possible compression. If you're looking for the maximum compression ratio easily attainable, you can use Z-Pak. As you can see, it's really slow. But it did bring it down to under a gigabyte. It can be worth it to use Z-Pak, but not so much for Kerbal Space Program. It's really good to use it on Steam game backups so that you don't have to re-download the games if you reinstall your operating system. You should note that Z-Pak takes as long to decompress as it does to compress. And so if it takes a really long time to compress the game, it's going to take a really long time to decompress the game. If you liked this video, subscribe to my channel or follow me on Twitter. This is the last video I'm doing this year, but Phase 2 of my channel starts up next year, so be on the lookout for new videos starting in 2018. See you next time.